Hey, welcome to our Wednesday makeup of our Monday night stream. We have because people have requested it, we kind of are do a short brief of what's going on in the world to kind of help people merge their historical knowledge with their current events and also not to become a regime change dupe. So this week we all heard about the Cuban. Hello, Rob Simmons. Hi, I'm so excited too. Also, we are monetized, so please use your super chat, even though we don't probably have enough people, and I'll probably read everybody's chat spontaneously halfway through conversation because I have ADHD. But please don't hesitate to donate. And right after this at 9:00, we're gonna have our first episode of the history of the history of the CPSU Bolsheviks. And hello, Toast. He says he's very delayed. Okay. So with that, please hit like, subscribe. Also go to historically.substack.com/subscribe, become a paid subscriber, and share this with you. Oh my God. Thank you so much, Rob Simmons. And at the end, please, I hope I can get your email so I can add you to the Substack and also the Discord. But thank you so much. So, the reason why I keep harping on you guys to read theory is because theory is a lot of wisdom from practical work. It is a lot of just wisdom from people who are far smarter than us that we can use. For example, I don't have, contrary to what I like to build myself, I don't actually have a magic coup detector, even though I say that as a branding exercise. The reality is that I read Lenin and I figured out what are the elements necessary for an actual revolution versus what are these elements not there, but that's been faking. It's a really bad faker too. It's like if your 5-year-old niece erases, cuts out a picture and then colors in her own picture and then places it and says, "Hey, this is a photograph." That's how bad it is once you know what to look for. So, anyways, the first thing is that if it's an organic protest, as in people who are citizens of the country are upset and they only them gather together for a genuine change in government, there's always something. Janet, can I ask you a quick question? What did Gandhi protest?
I would think the English.
Yes, good. Okay. What did MLK protest?
For civil rights.
Okay. What did Mandela protest?
Basically, I would say civil rights. It was the apartheid stuff. So
okay. So it took you 5 seconds to mention all of this. What was Juan Guaido protesting?
The communism. I don't know. Socialism. I don't know.
See, you can't make a definite demand because if you're protesting an actual grievance, you have to first be able to explain what the grievance is. Okay. So one final. What did Black Lives Matter protesters protest?
The police violence against Black people.
Yeah. So you can actually tie concrete events to the protest, yes. George Floyd, boom. And then, and so that way, when you then look at the color revolution protesters, the one in Belarus last year, they were like saying something like too many ambulances or the vague tyranny. My favorite was from the Bolivian Bolsonaros, and they were like just straight up racist. So if they can't tell you what they're protesting, it's probably because it's really racist, or their grievance is just kind of fake and they just want a new government, and no one just wants a new government. They want the government to meet, they only want a new government as much as the new government will meet their demands, as opposed to just a vague new government. And so that's how you can tell that the entire Cuban protest is astroturfed.
Yeah.
Well, on top of the whole, of course, the fact that they're being covered all over the country when 250 million people protest, like 10,000 protesters or 5,000 or however many in Cuba. Cuba has a population of 11 million. India has a population of 1 billion, and 250 million people protesting did not make it to the news at all. So why did Cuba's whatever piddly little protest? If that, I don't even know. I like the pictures look like there's like 50. I swear to God, my streams get more people. And it's because if you remember from the Podesta leaks with WikiLeaks, look at how New York Times covers things. You need a PR agent or somebody to force feed it into New York Times. Like they just don't have the curiosity needed to randomly pick up events that everyone else is doing. And usually New York Times is very late to the party. And after all the other news outlets do it, they finally cover it. So the fact that these protests has so much public visibility should be another red flag. I mean, it does not mean that they're definitely astroturfed, but it's a sign towards being astroturfed. And of course, if the CIA director or Anthony Blinken said something about overthrowing the government or something ghoulish, that's just they're just giving away the game. And last but not least, you can always check the NED documents. And the thing is that the U.S. government has always been under so much power that they don't, when you're in power, you can flaunt your power. You don't have to hide crap. You only hide crap when you're scared of something. But when there's no hegemon to oppose you, you don't really care. So you don't have to really hide. You're not really afraid of the people. Come on. So a lot of what you think is very, literally half of my blog is based on just publicly available documents that I can download from the State Department that I read carefully. You'd be surprised at what you can read when you read carefully, but you will understand what's going on. What is going on is that the U.S. government, for the first time in history, is scared of losing their Lebensraum or Monroe Doctrine. So Peru is probably hinging left if they can't do a coup. And then Chile, there's nothing they can do on Chile. Argentina has Fernandez. And then it looks like Lula is going to be back in Brazil. And so now they are oh my God, our lithium, our minerals. Oh, they need freedom and democracy. And what you have to understand is, why are they targeting Cuba? Well, this is really easy. Let's look at the 1961 State Department memo and let me know when it's on.
That is up now.
Okay, so let's just read the first paragraph extremely carefully.
You want me to read it? It's Latin America.
I got it. Latin America today is in a state of deep unrest. Most of its countries are economically underdeveloped and socially backwards. The distribution of land and other forms of national wealth greatly favors the property class. The masses suffer from poor housing, malnutrition, and illiteracy. In many countries, large rural groups, which include most of the Indian peoples, are not integrated into the economic and social life of a nation. The poor and underprivileged, simulated by the example of the Cuban Revolution, example of the Cuban Revolution, are now demanding opportunities for a decent living, such as asking for food, education. And so that is basically been their beef in Cuba since 1960, which is like 60 years. And it's just as simple as that. And then there's a big Gusano lobby in Miami and all over. And the Gusano lobby, and then the State Department, dances to the Gusano lobby, and it just kind of orchestrates itself. And so that's basically what they're afraid of. And also, like I said, you would have heard of Mandela. People knew who Mandela was decades before he became the prime minister or the president. I can't remember which one. And you all knew, everyone knew who Che and Castro were years before. Everyone knew who Lenin was. Gandhi was also in the press. They're not secret, because if you are actually fighting with the people, you cannot keep your relationship with a billion people or whatever. It's that much of a secret. So it's so Juan Guaido, on the other hand, he just kind of popped up, and they are trying him with other people, blah blah blah. So what you'll see is that, again, these are so obvious if you know where to look. And usually the best place to look is the history of the country. And then you'll kind of understand how they came into power. And once you understand how they came into power, you'll also understand what keeps them in power. And then you'll understand how to get them out, what is needed to get them out of power. And then you can do a little pattern matching. And then you should also, most importantly, ask, what is the opposition opposing? What are the protesters protesting? And if you can't figure that out in 30 seconds, just kind of withhold support and just kind of look back and research more. And eventually, if you can't figure it out right away, with Cuba, within 6 to 8 months, you'll figure it out. So until then, I stayed quiet with Hong Kong until I understood what was going on. And it took about 4 months, but you can do that. Just stay quiet, and you don't have to support every protest in the world, regardless of what they do. Yeah. As for our guest tonight, it's Brian Mier from Brazil Wire, the only English language newspaper that carries Brazilian news for you. So you don't have to drink up pro-Bolsonaro propaganda from Wall Street Journal or something like that. And, well, it looks like the polls are looking very bad for Bolsonaro. I mean, he's gonna lose even in the first round if they run Lula, and if they don't assassinate him, and if they run something of a marginally not, they don't even have to run a totally fair election. They just can't have a completely unfair election. Any election, literally, regardless of how fair Lula is gonna win this. So now, the CIA director met with him, and then over the weekend, something really strange happened in Venezuela. In Caracas, they busted a whole bunch of Colombian mercenaries. And if you read the Dan Cohen article on historically.substacks.com, you'd know that the Colombian mercenaries were trained by the U.S. and Israel. And so then Evo Morales made a comment about Operation Condor 2.0. So now I'm just kind of putting all these dots together, and then I just remembered alleged DEA agent or alleged Colombian mercenaries, whatever, assassinated the Prime Minister of Haiti last week. So it seems like Evo Morales has some sort of intelligence that we don't have in regards to Operation Condor 2.0. Operation Condor 1.0 was like when Pinochet like dumped people off the helicopters and killed thousands, and they had an intercontinental death squad that murdered God knows how many. We still keep finding mass graves. Ultimately, we just kind of need to be aware of this, and I don't know what we're gonna do, how, or even if it is possible to oppose U.S. military, and what deters the U.S. military from sending troops to, say, maybe Cuba or Haiti or Dominican Republic or whatever other random country they want. Ammo said, I always try to point out to people that you can keep your mouth shut. Some people act like there's a rule against it. I know. And so, with that, enjoy the interview with Brian Mier. It's going to be about 30 minutes. And then a little after 9 o'clock, come back for the very first episode of the history of the Soviet Union. Today we have, for our yet unnamed Monday night stream, we have Brian Mier from Brazil Wire to talk to us about whatever the State Department is doing in Brazil. So last week, it looks like William Burns from the CIA went to meet with Bolsonaro. So what's going on there?
Hi, Aisha. It's a pleasure to be here. Well, he didn't just meet with Bolsonaro. He met with military leaders, including General Augusto Heleno, who was in charge of the massacre in Cité Soleil, Haiti. He was in charge of the MINUSTA's military operations under the leadership of the UN. He's now someone who absolutely hates. He's a mortal enemy of Lula and the PT party, and he's currently running the Institutional Security Cabinet of Brazil, which is this kind of like umbrella agency that oversees 17 departments, including intelligence. And he's basically considered the most powerful person in the Bolsonaro government. And so the CIA head made sure he went and met with him as well. And, there's a lot of speculation over what actually went down in these meetings. People are saying it could have been that he's looking for support against Venezuela and against Bolivia, and maybe he was offering some things in exchange for this support. And other people are speculating that maybe Nicolas Maduro said that maybe the point of the meeting was that they were planning to assassinate Nicolas Maduro. Now, if you look at there was one assassination attempt last year with a group of mercenaries hired from some Miami company or Florida company arriving in the countryside that was immediately squashed. But you see, they just did a very similar kind of operation in Haiti and succeeded.
Yeah.
So the question is how much was the USA or CIA involved in these processes? I mean, there must be some kind of involvement, because there's, I guess, apparently a video circulating, which I saw on Twitter this morning, of the U.S. ambassador to Haiti recently saying that, they might have to get Juvenal Moise out of the picture. They might have to get rid of him, kind of, because he didn't look like he was supporting a transfer of power or something. So there's a possibility they were talking about, back to CIA in Brazil, talking about possible assassination attempt of Maduro, which is what Nicolas Maduro said the meeting was about. At the same time, some people are wondering, maybe they just came down to talk about 2022. Maybe the CIA is offering Bolsonaro some kind of deal, resign and we'll make sure that the military keeps in charge of things or something. Because it's interesting, he went to the military advisors as well. And there's now 17 military generals in Bolsonaro's cabinet and 6,000 either reserve or current officers in his government, which is more than we've had in the last two governments of the military dictatorship. They had less military in office than there are right now.
Wow.
So, yeah.
one thing is that how is I just looked at a recent poll between Lula and Bolsonaro, and it's not even close. So can you talk a little bit about that?
Oh yeah. If the elections were held today, Lula would probably win in the first round. He's over 20 points ahead of Bolsonaro. Bolsonaro's at an all-time low. The majority of the Brazilian population now supports his impeachment. 63% say he's doing a poor or terrible job as president. And, Lula's rejection rate, which all the neoliberals always complained about why they couldn't support BT because they had a high rejection rate. He's got the lowest rejection rate of any potential candidate now. He's got the majority of support in some of Bolsonaro's former key demographics. For example, most evangelical Christians now support Lula.
Wow.
So even in the evangelical Christian, which was mainly like the main support base of Bolsonaro, he's losing to Lula. So if there were free and fair elections, which we didn't have in 2018, and we didn't respect the free and fair election process from 2014 because Dilma Rousseff got removed on a technicality.
Accounting error, right?
An accounting infraction that it was later proven she didn't even do, that was like legalized 2 days after she left office by the Senate, which the Bolsonaro government does all the time right now. It's not exactly an error. It's like shuffling budget between departments to cover deficits on the annual budget report, but it's not. It doesn't involve stealing money or anything. But the fact is that she was exonerated from it. She didn't even do it. So that's a sign that the 2014 election wasn't respected. So I think it's kind of like optimistic to think that there'll be a free and fair election next year in Brazil. I mean, we can hope that there will be, but if there were, Lula would win.
So that would make, now that there is Pedro Castillo in Peru, and if Lula wins, that there's Marcos Fernandez in Argentina, so it'll be bigger than the pink tide was in 2004.
Yeah, I guess so, because we don't have Ecuador anymore.
But
we lost Paraguay,
but you have Peru.
And Uruguay, but have Peru, and Peru's a bigger country than those other countries.
So I wonder, and then there's the Chile's new constitution, and I wonder,
Chile could go communist, So
some people are wondering if there's going to be a Condor 2.0. What do you think of that?
Yeah, I've heard people mention it. There could be another. My guess is that since the days of Operation Condor, the intelligence apparatus has gotten a lot more sophisticated. And so it wouldn't maybe look exactly like Operation Condor. I don't think they're going to pay for former Nazis to give them torture lessons like they did in the 1970s.
Correct. But and then Bolsonaro made a very strange comment after the meeting. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Well, he's making so many strange comments.
Okay, sorry. He made a comment about how if there's election fraud.
He won't recognize. He's been saying this for like a year now. He's not going to recognize the results of any election that doesn't have him as the winner. Basically, what he's been saying. Then he's pushing to return to a paper vote, which would be ridiculous, because the electronic system in Brazil really works well, and it's very hard to hack into because each machine is separate. They don't connect to each other at any central point. And you see, we get election results in the same day, unlike the US, which spends like 10 days tallying an election because it's print. So I think it's a dumb idea. And it's obviously just because it's easier to steal votes when they're print votes instead of electronic. Yeah. I think that would be the only reason.
Steal the entire ballot box.
Yeah, like they do in Chicago historically, Here in Chicago, where I'm passing the summer before going back to Brazil to get back into this fight in August. But basically, in terms of Operation Condor, we feel like really the new Operation Condor was kind of like Lava Jato investigation.
Yeah.
Because it had the same objectives as Operation Condor, kind of, you know? But it was different tactics, which was just basically target any left, not just any left leader, but any leader in Latin America who pushes back in favor of sovereignty over anything. You know, just take them out with a sham anti-corruption investigation, which is what happened. You know, I mean, you see even like Alan Garcia in Peru, he was not a left-wing person at all, but he did support, you know, UNASUL. He did support these regional coalition, you know, trading coalitions and stuff, which the U.S. doesn't like. So I don't know. I mean, it's for every one of these Latin American leaders who faced Lava Jato related anti-corruption charges, almost all of them had some reason why the U.S. wouldn't like them or would be, you know, antagonistic with them, regardless of whether it's left or right, I think.
So you recently published an article on Brazil Wire saying that this CIA, whatever was meeting, is also connected to the new Cold War with China. Can you explain a little about this?
Okay, that's my colleague from Brazil Wire, Natalia Urban's article. But yeah, it's pretty. I mean, it's pretty obvious that the Biden administration is engaged in a new Cold War with China, right? Maybe it's unilateral. I don't think China wants a new Cold War with China, but and so I think it's very logical to just assume that one of the subjects of conversation in this meeting had to have been kind of like, you know, we'll continue to support you if you continue to support us against China kind of deal offering. I mean, that seems like that would have been discussed, you know, although because, you know, China is the largest trade partner of Brazil. So it would be suicide for Brazil to try and start, you know, engage in a Cold War against China. And Bolsonaro has been doing it, and the all along, and the Brazilian economy has been suffering for that because China is beginning to get pissed off at Brazil and Bolsonaro. You know, so when it comes to like prioritizing a purchase of like whatever, how many gazillion tons of soy, they might go, oh, we'll do it with Argentina this year instead of Brazil because we're just a little, you know, all other things equal, we'd rather support the economy in a country that is not openly antagonistic to us, which is the case of, you know, Brazil. And, you know, we've even had like racist tweets from members of Bolsonaro's cabinet imitating Chinese accent and things like that. And so the ambassador from China is getting just more and more pissed off. And it's not typical Chinese diplomatic behavior to like openly confront and complain about something, but you're getting more and more of these comments from the Chinese ambassador to Brazil right now. So I'm pretty sure that they probably touched on this subject, you know, definitely. Celso Amorim, who is the former Secretary of State during the Lula government and Minister of Defense for Dilma, he said his take on it was kind of like, first of all, the fact that we know about this meeting with the head of the CIA, even though it was kind of like leaked by incompetence in the Brazilian military and the press found out about it. But he was saying like, even just the fact that the press found out about it means it wasn't that important of a meeting, because when the CIA has important meetings, nobody ever knows about it. And he's saying that he feels like the purpose of the meeting was to kind of like perform a diagnostic on the leadership of Brazil in order for them to decide what kind of secret moves they want to make in the future. And that it wasn't, you know, the fact that it was kind of like reported on in the papers and things like that means it wasn't a, you know, secret plotting meeting. It was more of a general meeting. But, you know, that's his take. Everyone's got different takes. We don't know what they actually said in the meeting yet. So it's a lot of speculation. The fact is, it's highly unusual for a CIA director to go meet a foreign president. Yeah. And I can't remember the last time that's happened anywhere. Can you? Happened in Ukraine or something, maybe?
Yes, actually, Ukraine. That was actually right. I think it was Ukraine right before my... No. right after Maidan, I think. But
Mhm.
yeah, exactly. And that's why I'm very concerned. And then this weekend, Venezuela arrested a whole bunch of Colombian mercenaries in Caracas. And apparently in Haiti too, allegedly, if the government is to be believed, they arrested some Colombian mercenaries in the Taiwanese embassy, which just perplexes me. And finally, about 2 weeks ago, we had Dan Cohen here who was talking about how the Israeli government frequently trains these Colombian paramilitary organizations. So if there are these Colombian mercenaries, there's a high chance that the US is involved in it. So it's just a lot of bizarre things going on this weekend. And then there's the strange astroturf protest in Cuba that may or may not be happening. So all of this happening this weekend is kind of concerning.
Yeah, something's going on. Something's obviously going on. And remembering that, I've seen footage. I believe that they've arrested these mercenaries in Haiti. It looks pretty obvious. And there's a clip that was released on Twitter just with the ambassador talking about the U.S. ambassador to Haiti a few months ago, talking about how they might have to get rid of Juvenal Moise. Yeah. And, I've been to Haiti a bunch of times. I worked there after the earthquake, and I was there. Last time I was there was for 3 weeks in 2016, and I met Guy Philippe there.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that the U.S. is very fickle historically in its alignments in Haiti. Haiti has this kind of like different battling factions of elites always. There's a historic break between the elite mulattoes and the elite blacks,
Mm-hmm.
who were represented by Daniel Fignolet, and then Papa and Baby Doc were like the first time that the elite blacks had taken over the country in
Mm-hmm.
a long time. So there's all this infighting, and the U.S. just like changes sides the whole time, because the U.S. put Moise in power or supported his coming to power, just as the U.S. backed Guy Philippe in the 2004 coup. They came back and sent the UN in to start fighting against him and his gangs, and then arrested him a couple of years ago. So they're always changing sides. That's why it's so hard to come up with a good analysis of Haiti. Also, the language issues and things like that, and a lot of misinformation being spread all the time even by supporters of Haiti and things like that, because of political alliances with Aristide's old party and things like that. So it's just complicated, but it does seem to be somehow related in my mind. This stuff going on in Haiti right now with what's going on in Cuba. They're only 100 kilometers apart. Now the New York Times is, spending a lot of time and energy talking about Haiti. They had 3 headline stories today compared to only 1 about Cuba. But they're spending a lot of time saying that Biden is denying that he wants to send troops to Haiti. Like Biden is like saying he's not going to do it. He's not going to. That to me seems like he's going to do it.
Oh yeah, because allegedly the Haitian government requested the U.S. government to send.
Troops. This guy in power right now, he's obviously worried that he doesn't have a base to hold on to power. So he's saying, save my mandate, U.S. But his mandate isn't even very clearly defined, because he was supposed to leave power as president this week, and another guy was taking over.
Prime minister or something like that.
So he was the president, because Haiti has a prime minister and a president system. So he was the president, and he was appointed president, right? He was appointed president like 3 months ago. He was like the deputy prime minister or something like that. But that was an interim position. And Moise had said last week that starting this Monday, there's going to be a new president. And so he was assassinated during this power vacuum, when it wasn't clearly established who his successor was going to be. And so now both of those 2 people are fighting each other. It's a split in the party, and the U.S. is backing, the U.S. is saying it doesn't want to send troops, which means either they're going to try and get the UN to come back, or they're going to send troops. Because one thing you can't trust about the U.S. is talking about not sending troops to Haiti.
Oh, yeah.
Does it all the time.
For me, like all of this is related because they are worried about quote unquote losing their influence in South America. And this is the most backed up against the corner there are in regards to South and Central America. So I think all of this is related because it's just weird that all of it is happening at the same time. And at the same time, we're also seeing an unprecedented wave of, I guess, pink members. I don't know what to say. Like, for example, Bolivia just recently also talked about a new partnership with China. And so it seems like everyone besides Ecuador.
Yeah.
Oh, by the way, did you hear about, I don't know, just 2 more minutes. Did you hear about the involvement of Macri with the coup against Evo Morales last week?
Yeah. And that reminds me of like Operation Condor type stuff, because basically what you had is Brazil and Argentina acting as sub-imperialist, forces in Latin America allied with the United States, engaged in regime change operations. So that's like a typical example of, I guess, what you would call sub-imperialism, that kind of behavior. So I'm hoping that Macri goes to jail for this. I hope Bolsonaro goes to jail for this. We know Bolsonaro was involved. Janine Áñez was using the Brazilian presidential jet to go back and forth between
I did not know
Brasilia and Bolivia. And the lowlands in Bolivia that border on Brazil have a huge presence of right-wing Brazilian agribusiness barons, like soy plantation owners and beef and stuff like that. And so there's already this kind of like foothold of Brazilian imperialism in Bolivia, but it's a sub-imperialism. Sense. It's doing it like at the orders of the U.S.
There was also he's a really bizarre character. He's called Branko Marinkovic.
Yeah, yep.
He was like a Croatian or Macedonian. I don't
Croatian
mercenary. No. I remember once like some Croatian got really mad at me when I called it. His apparently mother is Macedonian. So, but he's a mercenary of this like far right. I don't know what to say, like extreme far right in Croatia, where he was then trained in Texas in agriculture. Yeah, and then after he was part of the whatever they did in Yugoslavia in 1992 to 1995, he came back to Brazil, and he was the head of the UCJ Union, not Brazil. I'm so sorry, Bolivia Union. And then after the assassination attempt against Morales, he ran away to Brazil, which is like unbelievably like peculiar. Like it just doesn't, there's so many questions that we don't have answers to. It's what I'm going to say.
That's true, and unfortunately a lot of this information remains murky for years, and then so at the time you're talking about like US coup attempts and things like that, you're attacked as a conspiracy theorist, and then like 20 years later it turns out
you were right.
You were right the whole time, and then nobody cares about it anymore. So
exactly.
I'm just glad that I've been exonerated for talking about U.S. involvement in the coups in Brazil and Lula's political imprisonment, because that's all public knowledge now. So
yep. Well, and we just had a recent interview with Brian on Historically, the podcast. We talk a lot about how they literally said gift from CIA. Mm-hmm. So please listen to it and check out Brian on Brazil Wire. It's probably one of the best English language news sites for information about Brazil. Thank you so much.
Thanks a lot.